Welcome, everybody. It's a good turnout for this session where we're talking about birth registration under Agenda Dad. Before we progress, this is going to be recorded and shared through the Future Men YouTube channel, the website, and over social media. Is everybody okay for this recording to take place? Please put a thumb up. Fantastic. Okay. So a quick recap of Agenda Dad, because this is the 9th session that we've had in this series for this year, from September to August. Obviously, we're in July, but this is the 9th session of this group of Agenda Dad. And in this session, we're going to be talking again about birth registration. Now, we have been joined by two fathers who are really courageously sharing their story about a difficult topic. I think that's fair to say. So we're joined by Melvin Clark and Dylan. And we're going to work through a few questions back and forth. But obviously, as this is two fathers sharing their personal stories, we want to ensure that everybody is respectful of their voices, that this space is a safe space where we're not attacking anybody. We can share our comments and questions through the chat. If you are posing a question, it would be very helpful if you could preface it with the letter Q, so that then when we go through the chat, I know what to distill. Okay. Melvin, thank you very much for joining us. And Dylan, thank you also for joining us from Northeast Young Dads and Lads. So, Melvin, let's start with you for a moment. What was the impact to you of not being on the birth certificate for your child? Oh, sorry, Melvin. For some reason, the audio is not working, although I can see that you're not on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So, yes, yes, sorry, if you could go from the first question about the impact of not being on your child's birth certificate.
So what I've found since we've had my daughter is that I've tried to be more legalistic and more professional in understanding the reasons or the effects of not being on the birth certificate. So the mother has the opportunity to make the choices and decide whether or not the father can be present at the time of birth. And because of that decision or that rule, the mother had made such a decision to not have me at the birth, causing the daughter, which is her right to have me on the birth, her birth certificate, to not have me on such. And the impact means that I have no parental responsibility. If the mother decides that the mother has decided that I have no contact with the baby, then I have no contact with the baby. Whilst we go through the court process at the moment, there is a process of waiting, and the waiting process usually takes up to 2 years to 3 years. So during that time where you're still having this acrimonious relationship with your child's mother, you are unable to exercise parental responsibility with the child unless the mother gives you permission.
And in terms of your contact then with your child, I can imagine that this was a real barrier. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct, 100%. The barrier here is that if the mother does not want you to have a bond with the child, then there is no contact with the child until you have parental responsibility, and it is deemed by the court that, and the social services or CAFCAS as well, that you are a suitable parent based on the allegations of the mother.
So it's almost as if you are being examined. Is that a correct kind of assessment?
Yes, examined them, and I think there's the movie phrase is guilty until proven innocent, and in this circumstances, you're examined to be proven innocent from a guilty perspective.
Dylan, I noticed that you were shaking, you're nodding your head when you heard
Definitely.
that. Can I bring you in on this conversation then?
Yes, definitely. That'd be nice. It does take big effects with building the bonds on your child. the likes of Kafkas and social services, you know, just like Melvin had said, it's like you're constantly under examination. Also, like Melvin said, it is like guilty until proven innocent. It feels like a lot of the time you're being targeted for something maybe you haven't done or in different circumstances. It puts a long time period on the court case, which obviously is upsetting, really upsetting, as you're missing out on bonding time with your son or daughter. You know, you're missing out on crucial moments of them growing up, different stages. It's very serious, and I don't think it's taken as serious in court as it should be.
So what I'm
Correct.
here, oh, please go ahead, Melvin. Go ahead.
I completely agree with you. I think there is more of a financial incentive in the family court than there is a moral incentive.
100%. It's money motivated, and a lot of
Melvin,
people cannot afford to pay for the court processes and solicitors. So that leaves a lot of dads representing themselves as well, like myself. I represent myself with no solicitor. I have a Mackenzie friend from the Northeast Young Dads.
and Dylan, staying with you, and then I want to come back to you for a moment, Melvin, to better understand what you mean when you say that there's a financial incentive rather than a moral incentive. But Dylan, your point there, I mean, you're talking about a process, but underneath the process are mental and emotional states for you, for your child, possibly for your family around you. Is that
Um,
correct?
yeah, that's correct. For me, I haven't had the opportunity to meet my daughter yet. She will be coming on 7 months old. This has taken a big effect on my life, really. Every day it's degrading the fact that I know I have a daughter out there and there's so much more I want to do, but I don't have the capability to do so. This is also upsetting for people like my mum and my nana. Obviously, my mum's first grandchild, so she was really excited, even more than me. So it doesn't just take a toll on the father, it takes a toll on a wider range of family, you know, siblings, other people, and it's quite serious, and it can play an effect on the mental health sometimes, and it leaves you, you know, down in the dumps in your own mind and wishing for better sometimes.
Um, Thank you. I mean, again, look, I possibly will over egg this cake, but thank you so much for sharing. It's so courageous of you for doing this. Melvin, can you tease out a little bit more what you were saying there about a financial versus a moral incentive?
Yeah, because let me give you the example of what the quote unquote right is in the UK is that the child has a right and the mother has a right. There is an automatic right for the father towards the child, but it's derived from the child, where the mother's right derives directly from her giving birth to that child. And in order for a father to prove himself to be someone who is desired to be a father, because there's a recent study that came out a couple of years ago that suggested that the courts did refuse to make automatic fathers because of their desire to be a father and etc. So one of the roles that a father has to prove to the court and to society, quote unquote, is that he wants to be a father, thus having to make an initial application to the court, which costs money. And then from that, you then need legal support because the mother can then falsely declare herself to be a victim of abuse, thus getting support from legal aid, where you are now fighting as a Mackenzie person because there is no assumption of legal aid for someone who isn't able for one, or there is no assumption of legal support in family law unless it's legally aidable. Um, in this circumstance, the father now has to get to the if he's afraid or if he feels fear, he then has to get a lawyer to then support him in court, which is then extra financial responsibility. He then has to pay for the DNA testing, which is extra financial responsibility. From proving that he is the father and in court, he then has to make sure that he pays for supervised contact, which is extra financial responsibility. And then from there on, he will be responsible for financial support for the child on a month basis, which is again more financial responsibility. And at that point in time, sometimes the fathers only get 1 day a week or 2 days a week, which is less than this is less than what a nursery teacher or a caretaker would see the child compared to what a father sees the child, which I think is quite outrageous. So there isn't a moral aspect here, because the moral aspect would be an automatic 50-50 right to that father and the mother, and then any relationship dispute or issues from there then reduces that right each way. But there isn't that route. The route is purely financial, and whoever has the biggest buck can win.
And Melvin, one of the things that, as you're saying all of this, I can't imagine how daunting it must be to go through all that bureaucracy and to consider this from so many different angles, when already I would imagine that you're fairly drained just emotionally from the lack of contact, the sense of marginalization, et cetera, et cetera. Dylan, I saw you again sort of nodding in agreement there. So, yeah, do you want to extend on that?
It's like you were saying, it is very daunting. On top of the pressure you feel being in and out of the courtroom already, like Melvin said, the financial stability that comes with it, it feels like the whole financial side is left for the father to deal with. And it feels like the father has to be penalized for possible allegations or possible differences in partnerships. And that creates tension in the courtroom. And it also creates a false image of people. So then people get painted out in the wrong light, and then it starts to play, obviously, like I said, the effects of the mental health. Some people don't take it as well as others and might wind up as easily and might get as upset so easily. And then they get painted out as being a bad father or a bad parent for having feelings and for getting upset over the situation. You get penalized for this also, which is also degrading on top of everything else that you go through in the process.
On top
I
of that,
mean,
Dylan, sorry.
go on, Melvin, go on.
Yeah, I wanted to add to your point, Dylan, because you're 100% correct. The issue here is that we're fighting society. As men in general, we are fighting society.
Yeah.
There is an expectation for us to be financially stable as men and to make income and to provide for our family and etc. But at the same time, we're not able to provide because of financial instability and the cost of living increases, and thus not able to provide that money. So you lose that self-esteem. You start to feel drained and bummed down because the society expects you to be a person who has money incoming, but for a person who has more money outgoing than they have for themselves, you do feel depressed. So the question is, how does that affect your parenting with your child? How does that affect you bonding with your child? How does that give you that mental freedom to be able to actually embrace your child completely without all of these extra stresses? Because this is a focus for the mother. One of the focuses for the mother is how is she feeling mentally, and is she mentally able to care for the child? There is no assessment or allowance for that for us.
And Dylan, thank you for your input there, Melvin. And Dylan, I just want to acknowledge what you said about this sort of catch-22, where there's a kind of sense of, well, I want to demonstrate that I'm an emotional entity. But if I emote in the wrong spaces, in the wrong way, wrong in inverted commas ways, although they're completely authentic and natural and understandable, and if people have empathy for one another, then they would be able to put themselves in your shoes and they might feel exactly the same way that you did. But if you do that, then all of a sudden it sounds like you're potentially demonized. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, a big saying I always say is, if the shoe was on the other foot, how would they feel? You don't understand the mental health, the stress, the weight you have to carry on your shoulders throughout the whole process and trying to maintain that strength. Because just like you were saying, if you walked into a courtroom and you were in floods of tears, you're looked at in a different light. Can you care for your child? Are you capable to be there and support your child? And it's the question of, I can get upset with the process and things going through the court and not being allowed to see my child. But then if I show these emotions, am I going to be penalized for them?
You are.
Ah,
You are. I can promise
Wow.
you.
Yeah.
A perfect example from my own experience is that I'm quite a proactive person naturally. I'm quite a go-getter. I've been in care my whole life, so a majority of the issues that I faced in my life was the social services or the council's reluctance to take responsibility for me as a child. So a lot of those things I had to fight for my own. And I've grown up having to fight for my own. So I'm quite proactive. If something needs to be done, I'm trying to do it as quick as possible to get it out of the way. And one of the issues that I faced with social services is that because of my proactiveness in my desire to resolve or come to a solution quickly so I can bond with my child, I was seen as a person who could be abusive or creating negative stressful atmosphere towards my child's mother, which is completely unfair. Even if I was to be, even if I showed him, when I did show emotion, I was questions were asked that weren't asked towards the mother. Responses were given to me that I guarantee you a woman would never get in response to my emotional behavior. So I sometimes I end up questioning them. Would you do this to your child? How would you like your child to behave if you had a son in the same situation as I am now? And what would you expect of your son? And sometimes they can't acknowledge it because we are dealing with more than just the issue of courts. We're dealing with a social imbalances and the rise of recent single parents and single parent households and the promotion of such behavior creates this mentality which makes it difficult for mothers to accept certain men as a father figure or someone who cares or love for a child first.
So again, guys, phenomenal testimonies and tremendous strength of advocacy. But I'd like to shift this slightly into a space because we have a number of people on the call who also support fathers, some of whom are in situations similar to yours. So thinking about no man being an island, who have you drawn on for support, and what did that support look like, and what challenges did you with that support go through? Can we start with Dylan?
So at the time of my ex-partner having carrying my child, Mabel, she'd left me and there was no communication between the both of us. So I took up every possible route I could for support. Social services, men's health teams, you name it, I tried it. Every door I tried to open, I was shut down. I was offered no support, no help, to where I was then led to Northeast Young Dads and Lads, which over the last year have been the biggest and most amazing support I've received. And they're helping keeping you proactive out there with other young males, other young dads in similar situations or different situations. We meet up for regular sessions with the children and the parents, and we all spend nice days out together. And it's really brought a bit of confidence into my life and a bit more of an insight to other people's situations and how sometimes it isn't just you going through what you're going through. There is other men out there witnessing what you're witnessing and going through exactly the same as you. I just think out there isn't really a lot of support for men in a whole. There's a whole stigma about young dads being, capable parents.
Oh, Dylan, there's a
As Melvin was saying, if you've been through the care system or like if you've been through the care system or you've been involved with social services, as Melvin was saying, they class you as a subject child, which also can be painted in a bad light in the courtroom with you witnessing and seeing things maybe you shouldn't have as a child. And they pin it out that you take this behavior and you inflict it on yourself, that it's okay to act and behave like this towards your child.
Wait. Can I just get that clear? Can I get that clear? So the two of you who are both extremely articulate, resourceful, resilient, reflective, all the sort of characteristics that future men would talk about, you demonstrate that from a position of let's say disadvantage, for lack of a better term. But you demonstrate all these strong characteristics that lead you into this space to be able to advocate on your behalf. And then that's held against you. Have I understood that correctly?
Because of the situations we've been in as children, we're classed as a subject child, which is a label. and it says as a whole family that we're not good and we have bad behavior, and we accept that, you know, possible things like child neglect or things that children shouldn't go through and being removed away from parents. If you've seen it as a child, then we inflict it on our child's lives. Where me personally, I think situations I've been through as a child and with my parents and being involved with social services makes you actually thrive and want for a better life for your child and want for a better outcome and better situations.
Well, I mean, from your testimonies, I would only say 100% behind that. But Melvin, you were not in your head, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Even if they don't prescribe you as a subject child, there is a tone that through my research I found that there is a tone against fathers, that there are abusers before lovers, something along those terms, that they are not capable of initial love. They have to be coached into it. And I think that's one of the perspectives that we're fighting quite a lot. We're fighting quite a lot of stigmas and social norms, and it's quite hard to fight all of them at once, especially the current climate in with certain rights and etc. It's quite difficult to edge your feelings in the right space as a man at the moment, especially when sometimes you are demonized just solely for your gender. I believe that like I've mentioned in the previous event that we went to in Lincolnshire, I strongly believe that in order for us to actually assume change, we have to start actively making change, such as having more male figures in these fields where they are heavily female populated. So we have more male midwives, more male nurses, which there are coming up, but more male nurses, more male doulas, and etc. People who are able to actually give a different perspective internally, rather than you having to search for the perspective once a decision has been made, so that you can identify how to make changes to whatever the decision's been made already.
That's a really insightful comment there, Melvin, and thanks for sharing. Melvin, coming back to the question of which organizations did you turn to or individuals for support, what did you find on your journey?
So I honestly leaned on social services. I grew up in care, so I initially thought that there would be a good support network when I was going through what I was going through, and able to see the issues, because they're supposed to be quote unquote your mother father figures. So I honestly thought that. So initially thought that social services would help. I had a good relationship with before, because after I left care, I continued supporting care leavers to get their stable property, and other organizations such as Partnership for Young London, Catch 22, and other organizations still trying to support young people in care. So I thought that, I had a better perspective on the issues that social workers have gone through, and we'll be able to bond a bit better, especially through my work through DWP. I've been helping and working with social services from different boroughs, but I've never dealt with social services from Southwark. So I'm in Lambeth. So I felt like I was completely out of my depth, and I was treated just like a normal person. And from that, I then got the support from Future Men, which have been extremely helpful. I think it's been quite hard for you guys to support me in the way that I need, because of the lack of funding to support such a circumstance. And I feel like we should advocate for more services to get such funding, so you can provide real life support, like such as barristers, legal aid, or whatever it may be, in relation to getting that fine information that you have to go through for years of research, that you may not get straight away. And it'll be able to help your case massively, because a lot of the court case issues is that you lead sometimes with emotion, because it's an emotional situation, but you need to rephrase your wording to be able to support yourself. And that's something I think that through Future Men and my research in understanding that there are not many services they're able to help you, I then have to then identify that information for myself, and then try my very, very best to help other people in that same situation.
I mean, again, like, what a testimony for your own self-efficacy and your ability to really stick at it. I mean, it's the process that you've been through has left you with a certain level of legal and social care training, it would appear. So Dylan, what is your current situation, if you can share that?
I'm currently in court. I don't have a solicitor, and I work alongside CAFCAS. My Mackenzie friend Paula. assists me all the way with everything I need. I'm currently at a bit of a standstill as I've been asked to complete a harbour course, which I'm not allowed to join up for.
And sorry, just for everybody's sake, could you describe what a harbor course is?
So it is a domestic perpetrator course, as my ex-partner has made allegations of domestic abuse. So therefore, Kafkas have then informed me that I have to complete the domestic perpetrator course involved with harbour to be able to put forward for any recommendations for contact. It is a 26-week relationship course, and I was only in a relationship with my ex-partner for 16 weeks.
Right.
So obviously it's a bit of a sticky one.
Yeah.
But at the moment, with me having private law proceedings, Harbour do not accept cases where you have an open pending case. So I'm currently being told that there might be a possibility of my case getting closed down. So I can therefore join up on the 26-week course to complete it and then go back to the courtroom and pay all the fees and all the fundings and everything over again, which I've already paid and processed. And it's a timely process as well. I had to wait 3 months before I got my first court date, and then it was re-adjourned for another 3 months. I've had one photo of my daughter in 7 months. I've not allowed any contact.
Uh, Dylan, all I can say is I'm so sorry to hear your story. But clearly the fight is in you, and
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sure that better days are there for you in the future. And Melvin, what is your current situation?
Okay, so I'm currently still in court as well, actually. I'm representing myself. I have no Mackenzie friend, and I have been in court since my daughter was 2, 3 months old. I made a court application quite quickly. We went through a 5-day fact finding hearing, which I won. My child's mother appealed it to the Royal Court of Justice as she was refused the appeal right in the family court, and that appeal in the Royal Court of Justice was also refused. So I'm kind of at a standstill at the moment. I'm not too sure exactly what is supposed to happen. It's either supposed to be a Section 7 from social services or supervised contact in the meantime until we complete the Section 7, or a Section 7 before the supervised contact. And I don't actually have a way of finding this information out. When I've asked the court's going to speak to a lawyer. When I've spoken to social services are saying that they only got a recommendation from the judge to look at this case again. And because it was a recommendation, they didn't have to do anything serious about it. And if the judge wants us to do something serious, or the social services wants, the judge wants social services to do something serious, then they have to put in a proper order, which I'm trying now to chase down. But it's just a lot. It's just a lot to do. I work full time. So everything opens the same time that I work, and I'm on the phone all day, working with customers, all day, working with vulnerable people as well all day. So it's quite a mental toll. I'm also trying to get progression for myself as well, because I need to progress in life. It's just a lot. It's a lot on my shoulders. So I have not seen my daughter since she was 4 months old. Future men were the reason why I was able to see my daughter at first instance. So I thank you. And then I saw my daughter 2 times after that, up until she was 4 months old. I have not seen her since she was 4 months old. She was born the same day as my birthday, and she is now 2 years old. And I've seen one picture of her as a child that's walking, but I don't know how old she is in the picture.
Thank you, Melvin, and thank you, Dylan. I mean, it's really moving to hear this testimony. So from your perspectives, what do you? Oh, Richard, are you? Oh no, sorry. Maybe Richard just doesn't have his microphone on mute. Thank you, Richard. Um, Dylan, and then I'll come to you, Melvin. From your perspectives, what what would you like to see changed in policy?
So I'm currently in a Section 7. For policies, as Melvin was saying about the 50-50% rights of being on the birth certificate and having a say in, your daughter's or son's life. I think from birth of the child, both parties should have the opportunity to go on birth certificate and have their chance at being a father or a mother, and they should both be only assessed through parentage, spending actual time with the child, and being assessed on your capability of being a parent with the child, not just being told, we've got allegations, you cannot see your daughter, we don't think you're a good enough father. My question is, how somebody could say that to you without seeing you acting as a parent and actually being a parent? Um, Obviously, as Melvin was saying, mothers automatically get the 50% of the rights as they automatically go on the birth certificate. And mothers don't have to undergo the same amount of assessments or stressful, courses or other things, etc., that the men have to go through and complete to get themselves in a situation to where they can then be seen as a capable parent.
So true.
And
And
Melvin, go
I
on.
want to help Dylan there 1 second. I want to rephrase that for you. It's not 50%. It's definitely mothers are assumed 100% responsibility because
Instantly.
you can't be given 50% if the other 50% has no power.
Yeah.
So it's 100% power that they've been given. But in relation to resolving this issue, I came across quite a few issues because yeah, let's just go to the solution. So I've written my solution down. So what I said is that I believe there should be a DNA test should be compulsory for presumed father after birth. Once
Mm.
this is obtained, the father should be compelled to sign the birth certificate. A fine should be imposed for those who do not register their children. If there is a risk of domestic violence, a staggered approach should be introduced to ensure that this document is signed. For example, the mum signs on the 10th and the father signs on the 12th. To further this, due to improvements in technology, this could be done via their local registrar, so the father and the mother never actually have to meet each other. I also believe that there should be an increase in marketing to attract men in the fields heavily dominated by women, as the perception of father is created by women and the mothers that have trauma-related responses to a father's love. Separate from this, it is common that mothers alienate children, mother's alienation of the child from their father due to the relationship experiences could further detriment the child's experience, the child's love towards the father, and further relationship. I believe that the assessment of women to women is counterproductive. I believe that there is a reluctance to hold themselves accountable due to the fear of losing power over their children and etc.
That's both of you provide tremendous insights into how this process could be fairer and more equitable for all. So tremendous insights. I'm going to turn now to the chat because there are some really profound questions in here. So I'm going to start with the question from Owen. Have either of you heard of the term parental alienation? Was it ever raised by anyone during your processes? And I'm going to extend that, Owen, with your grace, to say, what does it mean to you? So, Melvin, can we go to you? So, was that term ever used in the process?
No, so I think again, this is through my research after the introduction of my introduction to Future Men, and I've mentioned it briefly here. I just maybe minced my word a little bit in when I was trying to explain it, but parental alienation is quite prevalent, and I think this is what parents are mothers are not being assessed on, and I think that the women to women assessment is dampening the conclusion that there is parental alienation. And I do really feel like this should be this should be better assessed. No one mentioned it to me beforehand. This is something I learned for myself, and I have mentioned it in court numerous times.
And Dylan, I saw you again nodding your head in agreement through that.
I agree there with Melvin. It's one thing that's never been brought up or discussed in any of my circumstances or situations. It's a serious thing that should be taken seriously. Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And was that term but the term was never used, you never heard that term being used during the process. It's interesting. Okay.
Never.
A question from Bernie, who is chair of trustees for Future Men. Melvin and Dylan, what do you feel the way forward is on this issue? How can we support you on this journey? You've kind of answered, you've given some insight into that. But in terms of organizations now supporting you on this journey,
Mm.
obviously there's an element where it's supporting you as an individual, but there's an element where it's supporting you as representative of something larger than you. So
Yeah.
what can we all be doing?
Can I answer this for you, Dylan?
Yeah, go for it, Melvin. Yeah.
I think we should have a fund that grants all fathers at least £3,000 to £5,000 of legal support.
Right up on that.
I do really believe 3 to 6,000, even possibly 3 to 6,000. 6,000 seems to be a sweet spot for most lawyers because that's what I'm repaying. But £3 to 6,000 funding to support fathers, get legal support. It may not be one stretch. Okay, you get one person gets spent £6,000 on them, because they may not need £6,000 worth of legal support, but a fund to help an individual person with legal support. This is the only thing that we need. There's nothing else that we can get help with. The emotional help means nothing if we have no legal support, because we get the emotional help and we're still going through legal issues. We're back to square one. So it just really, we just needs funding.
Go on, Dylan.
You're never getting out of that circle. You're just in a forever, never-ending cycle of a state, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can fully appreciate that. Another question from Owen. How do you both feel about the child maintenance service expectation that all fathers must provide financially for their children in a fair and equitable way, which has a government department enforcing this rule? And how does that feel in relationship to the lack of support for fathers to negotiate fair contact?
I think if fair contact was given, then if you were to spend time with the child, I think all child maintenance should go towards the child. So if you're spending time with and you're going out and, clothing your child, feeding your child, taking your child out on activities, that should come under child maintenance and caring for your child. If there was no contact in place and mother was seeking child maintenance, I would have an expectancy of fathers to pay their way for the child, but on an understanding that it is going for the child's needs, and what gets sent over money wise, maybe, photographs or something else in return to see that, the child is actually benefiting from what you're helping them with.
As a minimum, I
As a
mean,
minimum.
both of you want to have, both of you want, and I think this is the case for many fathers, if not all fathers, want to have contact with their children.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, life can be messy and things can happen along the road, but for the vast majority of people who have children, it is not so that they cannot have contact with them. That's
No.
not, that is not why that journey is started. Melvin, what about your thoughts on this?
I do believe we should pay up. We should pay towards our children. I think that the assessment of that should also change. I think there should be an overall look at the mother's what's it, fiscal? What's it, the main bills? What's the word for that? The bills that are fixed, the fixed bills. So this is her rent, gas, electricity, water, etc., and stuff like that. And the percentage that should be contributed towards that's included for the child maintenance. Fine, we accept that because our child is using that space as well. Then when it comes down to the food and etc., I don't know the real solution to this. My automatic solution would be going to vouchers, just so I ensure that the money is getting spent in the store, not necessarily being spent on the child. I won't know that, but there's a less room for issues around that. I don't really see the issue in paying for the child. I do really feel we should contribute financially toward the child. Just how that happens is a question.
That's a great insight.
Yeah.
And yes, again, life can be messy, but in almost every circumstance, it's probably not the result of the child, and it's
Yes,
certainly
exactly.
not to the detriment of the child. So I think that the statement from both of you, which is really, open and shared magnanimously in a very calm manner, is that yes, we have responsibilities as parents, both sides, and those responsibilities are emotional and financial material. And nobody wants to sort of renege or not meet those responsibilities. So those are, and yes, go on, Melvin.
I
Very,
have
very, very
one
polite with
point.
the finger, by the way.
Yes.
Very polite.
I have one point that I think may be a bit controversial. I
Go
don't
on then.
agree with the fact that we give child element to the mother for the benefits, and then the child maintenance is not taken into consideration to reduce that benefit. So, for example, a mother could be getting the 300 or the 200 and something pounds for the child support, or quote the child's well-being, the child element of universal credit, and the 400 or 500 pound that the mother's getting from that for child maintenance isn't affecting that money. So thus the child end up getting about 500-600 pounds for themselves, including child tax credit and etc. We should be able to see much more affluent children, much more a better atmosphere for children, a much more better environment for children with such funds coming in. I feel like it's hard to manage. There is a social issue with spending. There is a marketing, there are some social issues of spending, and yeah, let's just leave it there.
Well, that you bring in some bigger issues there within
Yeah.
society, and we'll have that chat on another communication channel, Melvin. And Dylan, you're welcome to join that. So that's cool. But yes, and I read a report from the DWP that was published in 2021 that was analyzing child maintenance services and the impact of payments by non-resident parents to resident parents. And they looked at data from 2014 to 2020, and what they found was that the child maintenance service and the payments made lifted more resident parents out of poverty, and 94% of resident parents are females, and it pushed more non-resident parents into poverty.
Exactly.
So the system, and I think that what happens is that in some way, shape, or form, look, life is expensive,
It is.
and it could be that even with full child maintenance support payments being made, it's not as sufficient as one might might want it to be. So
Correct.
there's a perception of like, okay, I need some more money. And then there's the other side, which is I don't have any more to give.
More to give you.
So let's field a few more questions. This one again from Bernie. Have either of you discussed any of this with your local MPs? So yeah. Oh, Dylan, you're a flat no. Okay. Melvin?
So I forgot to mention in my other services, I've been contacting my MP for the last 2 years, Neil Cole, and I've also recently gotten Lambeth MP involved. I've also contacted the director for children's services for Lambeth and social and Southwark as well. I've been trying to contact as many people as possible, and I've contacted the Prime Minister as well at the time. I think it was I think it was a female. I can't remember who it was, but I've been trying my very best. Any services I can. The initial support that I got from the if you ever need help from your MP, what you should do is put in the subject heading urgent, and they will guarantee look at it. But what I've received, the support I've received is communication with CAFCAS, but I think there was a miscommunication. Sometimes it's hard to communicate exactly what you need in writing because the person's perceiving it in their own vision. So there was a miscommunication in what support I exactly needed from CAFCAS or from the courts. And because my case has been closed with CAFCAS, there wasn't much support they can give me. But as the case has now moved to quote unquote social services, I have contacted them to look at this again.
Thank you again for sharing. And again, I know that there are service providers on this call, many of whom I can see taking notes or furiously about what we can all do within this space. I want to come to a question which I saw from Jess Hobbs. Yes. This is in regards to mental health. You've both mentioned that this has had an effect on your own mental health, which is completely not surprising. But can you put your finger on anything that has kept you going through all this stress and difficulty, either within yourself or support from others?
Child.
The child.
Simply the child makes me thrive to fight.
Okay, so that I understand that, but can you extend that a little bit?
So the fact that I currently am in this situation and I cannot see my daughter and I'm constantly having to fight, makes me want to keep the fight going until I really get the end result that I'm wishing for. And I'll do anything that's put in front of me to do so. And it is the fact that I'm in this situation and I have no contact with my daughter, which makes me thrive for it more.
And as Dylan said previously, being in care means that we are trauma led. So in relation to this issue with us wanting to be around our children, etc., the mental health issue, the first barrier is the fact that when we saw ourselves being fathers before parenting, we saw ourselves as being complete opposite to what we lived, what we went through, what we wanted for our life. We wanted to give that to our child, possibly spoil them, because that's a part of the excitement of having a child as well. We had a lot of these dreams, aspirations, and desires, and what the reality really does hit strong. It really does hit stronger than Mike Tyson. Is really strong because who could have imagined this kind of circumstances happening to somebody? Mental health, again, like I said, we haven't been taught as men, some men, we haven't been taught how to correctly manage our emotions. And again, like I'm saying, we are raised by single parents. So we haven't been taught to correctly manage our emotions as men. And a lot of our sadness turns into anger quite quickly, just to refrain from actually experiencing that pit of sadness and hopelessness, because we are so solution focused and we want to always have a solution for ourselves. We don't want to feel like we have no hope. So in the circumstance where we're feeling this stress of not being able to see someone who has even put themselves in this scenario in the first place, it's not their fault. They're an innocent party. They deserve the best that we can offer. They deserve the best that of us. And I don't believe that they should be privy to any of the stresses that both parents are volunteering onto these children. So we try to continue neglecting our emotions, neglecting how we really feel, because we really can't express them correctly. I've actually, Dylan, just in case, I've been looking into rage rooms recently. I haven't been to any, but I've been really looking into some rage rooms.
Yeah, interesting. That'd be very
And
good.
Hold up. What is this?
a
Let
rage
some
room is,
anger out.
sorry, go on.
Let some anger out.
Yeah.
Literally.
So
Absolutely. Everything.
it's a place where you go into a room and they have like broken television, broken machines, broken things. You get a bat or a hammer and you just go and just release all your stress and just express yourself, really, because I
Because
do strongly believe that we need to express we express ourselves physically. Rightfully or wrongfully, we do express ourselves quite physically, and I feel we need to have a better expression of those of those emotions, and having those spaces like boxing, kind of physical exercises that tire your body out, your muscles out, are quite good. Not separately from the rage room. Obviously, you can do boxing and then other things, but just an example of something that I've been thinking about for myself. But mental health wise, let me just be honest with you, I've given up on my emotions. I've given up on my mental health. I've given up on my happiness. I've given up on my stability.
No, don't do this, Melvin. Don't do
I'm
that.
giving you honesty. I'm giving you honesty. I can function.
I hear it, but don't.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, don't give up on your hope. Don't give up on your emotional state.
Yeah, I hear it too, but the reality is reality, you know. So I have to manage myself quite well, and I feel like in these circumstances, having these hopes and letdowns is too painful for a person that's by themselves, that have no mom and dad, no family support, nobody else around you. It's just too much to open yourself up to, and you need to protect yourself because you haven't got that comfort anywhere else. And even though it sounds harsh, you can't just succumb to everybody else's way of dealing with life, because they've had a different path to life, and even though we've met up in this junction, the road to this junction was completely different, and the road continuing will be continuously different. And I want to not say that I've given up, as in I'm going to go and do something stupid. No, I still have the motivation. I still have roles in my life that I have to commit to. I still have responsibilities in my life that I have to bear. So I'm making sure that I'm committing and focusing purely on those responsibilities, while trying to make sure that my feet still work and I can keep moving forward.
And I also just want to reflect something back that you both kind of said earlier, which is that, of course, managing our emotional well-being and our mental health is extremely important. It's important in and of itself, but it's also important so that we can affect and see change. if, for example, we're just managing our emotional health and mental health and things aren't moving forward, ultimately that is quite likely to wear us down, you know. So there is an aspect of this which is which is kind of more systemic and social, if you want, and environmental.
Yes.
That we got sort of 10 minutes left, and I wanted to, Doug, I know that you're not prepared for this, but I wanted to bring you in your role at Northeast Young Dads and Lads, and you know the work that you have been doing with Dylan and many others is so admirable. And I was wondering if you could provide any insights on this topic from your perspective, having worked with not just Dylan, but others who are, experiencing the same challenges.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Absolutely. And first of all, I just want to say for Melvin and Dylan, what a fantastic job you're doing. Absolutely brilliant. Yes, at Northeast Young Dads Lads, we have, and I have worked with a number of young men where they're not on the birth certificate and they're seeking to be on the birth certificate. And also when we're looking at why, sometimes we need to look at why this is happening. Sometimes it's not just because mum decides that she doesn't want dad on the birth certificate. And what we find working with young parents and young dads as well, that maternal grandparents can have a massive influence on dad's involvement with the child and dad's actual registration of the birth. So there's other factors that we also have to take consideration that impact and influence when someone is, whether dad's registered on the birth certificate or not. And what was quite interesting as well, I work with a lot of young men, I have just quite recently, who wanted to make an application to court to be registered on the birth certificate. So we filled out the form, but he was too scared to send it because he was too worried about what the implications for his contact and relationship with the mother of the child and the child would be. So it's really interesting, you know, when we talk about that whole mental health, I think that is one of the biggest impacts that a lot of young men that we work with around about on the birth, being on the birth certificate, and understand what it is the impact on their emotional well-being. And which both Dylan and Melvin talked about as well, is sometimes an assertive dad can be seen as an aggressive dad.
Right.
Someone who wants to, you know, fight for their rights in a positive way can sometimes be seen as aggressive, can also be seen. So we do a lot of work to, and I know that Paul has been doing a lot of work with Dylan to understand the court process, how to, you know, the horrible thing we have to do is how to present yourself in these meetings and in the court, and also dealing with Kafkas. And also a big one for us is the time scales, you know, because you know, we all want things to happen ASAP, but the time scales can be quite long, and that can be really hard, which Dylan talked about with a lot of young men, is the missing milestones. So we do a lot of work when young men do re-establish contact. Sometimes they see the child as a baby, but they could be, you know, 1 year old, maybe older. So we have to do a lot of work with those young men on around understanding where that baby is on its journey and understanding what happens at contact. Because a lot of young men that we work with, the first contact session, there's a lot of tears and a lot of joy, but there's also a lot of being scared and worried that they've done it wrong and being the surveillance part of supervised contact in a very sterile, unfriendly kind of place where you're expected to interact with your child without someone giving you that support, you know. And luckily within the Northeast, there's a service that can support young men through that. But we know, as we've talked about today, in other areas, there isn't this service that supports that and understanding what's going to happen at contact, where the child is on that child's journey, being able to interact with them, knowing what's expected of them, helping them to understand all those reports. And, you know, we all wrote Section 7s and Section 47s, and we understand what they are. But, you know, people living it don't understand them. So we need to break down some of those, you know, those acronyms that get thrown at and understanding. And, you know, a lot of court papers a lot of court talk, which the young men don't understand, or most men don't understand. So trying to support them through that is a really important part of the work that we do, and making young men understand what PR means.
Yeah.
It's not just seeing your child. There's a lot more than just seeing your child. So helping them understand what that actually means to them now and in the future.
Thank you, Doug. I'm very aware of time. So Owen, I'm gonna set you a challenge to share your views in under 2 minutes.
Goodness, Chris, thanks so much. Look, first of all, just like Rob, I've got to thank Dylan and Melvin, who I know fairly well, so much for being honest and sharing their experiences. It can't be easy. They're exposing themselves and it's risky. So thanks to everyone for listening and being supportive in your comments. I guess I put quite a few of my comments in the chat as well, which is about, this is, whilst we need to support young men and young mums who are in this position of dispute at this tough time, the way systems are set up historically reflects the way our society's been set up, that caregiving is women's work and that men make babies and we pay for them, right? We as a society don't want that anymore. We voted enough of our feet. Individuals might choose that as a system that works for them, but where there is dispute between parents, whether they're young or not, we have to get better at supporting this and finding redress. We also need to get better at educating everyone in society about what a child's rights are and what we as adults, whether you're mum or dad's, responsibilities are. And we have to get better at teaching and supporting people through this process. Absolutely pertinent point about it. It isn't just the mums and dads in dispute. There are maternal and paternal gatekeepers as grandparents. There are other friend groups and family members. There are peer groups and people around who may be projecting their own experiences of a poor relationship onto someone and saying, yeah, I've seen that pattern of behavior before, you should cut off contact, or conversely to the young men, you have to go get control and reinforce your rights and don't give money unless you're seeing the children. Both of these sides, these polarized views, as we live in a more polarized society, are unhelpful at such a crucial time in the lives of young children. We really need to get better at educating key professionals, social workers, support services, early help, midwives and health visitors about the importance of the role of fathers, particularly marginalized younger or ethnic minority fathers as well, and then over a generation, because this is not the work of a moment, hopefully we'll start to see the changes in society we need. But, North East Young Dads and Lads, ourselves and 1 and 2 others around the country are one of very, very few services that are available for men at this time in their lives. I can see Trav from Dads Matter up there in Norfolk as well. They do similar good work. So thanks for coming along. And Adrian from Fatherhood Institute does a great job at summarizing a lot of research in this area for a long time. And we started some of these conversations looking at family and the law. I know under the last Labour government, they got very close to putting forward a paper around joint birth registration of children. And I think whilst that's a really important first step, we need to get that done, where PR doesn't actually stop mother from withholding contact or for parents to falling out around their contact arrangements. So whether you've got PR or you've not got PR, that's not the end of the journey. As Doug was kind of saying, we need to keep it going. We need to keep the support up and we need to keep kind of pushing for the society we want to see, which is fairer, more equitable, and focused on the needs of children. And children need both of their parents' input. And that isn't just perfect parents. Where mums are struggling or mums need support, we've accepted for a long time we should support mums. But with men, as someone else put in a quote up there, particularly caregivers, like I was seen as a vulnerable child until the moment I became a father and then I became a risk. That's what we need to shift. We need to shift that. We need to see men as human beings with all of their flaws, with all of their deficit and all of their problems, and see all of their great potential too. I think I'll leave it there, really, given time.
Well, yes, we've come to 2 o'clock. It feels wrong to call a line under this, because it feels like this has been, I've been sort of hosting this. I've been doing the jazz hands on the Agenda Dad thing for 9 different sessions. But under that, this session, I have to say, has by far been the most impactful. The testimonies of you two have been incredible. And in the chat, all we have is kind of an outpouring of thanks and support, tremendous comments, tremendous sharing of insights. So, you know, bravo to the two of you. Great work from Northeast Young Dads and Lads and Future Men, as always. Great work from everybody who is supporting the agendas of fathers and fatherhood. Dylan and Melvin, if you could stay on after I stop this, this would be wonderful, just so I can get a moment to debrief with both of you. To everybody else, thank you so much for joining today. It's been a really remarkable session. As I said, all the assets, that is the video, the chat, and the questions will be shared through through social media and on our Future Men website. And all I can say is thank you so much to everybody for attending.